Welcome to the Passive Wealth Principles podcast. I'm your host, Jake Harris. Today, I have a fantastic guest. I've known Jamie Gruber for about 4 years now. We talk about his path to leaving his W-2 high income earning executive position to being a full-time real estate investor, but not only that, a full-time course creator, mastermind host, podcast host, doing all of these things that are really and truly his purpose in life that is filling him up with energy, his excitement, some of the details of the story that we dive into, and his process of that taking several years, leaving a job that he hated until he got and created enough income and value to leave his W-2. So jump right in to this episode with my friend, Jamie Gruber. Jamie Gruber. I've been excited about this podcast episode, partly because I'm a big Jamie fan. I am a big Jamie cheerleader fan. I feel that, we've got a chance to spend a couple different times, several times that we've got a chance to spend time together. And I always take a lot of insight from that. Also, just when we hang out, I feel energized, and I often share with my wife. I was like, oh, Jamie and I were talking about this, or we're talking about that. And then even it was last week, we were in San Francisco, and you sat down next to my wife, and we're kind of discussing a little bit there and how similarities, like we're the same age, our wives are the same age, like all of these things, more similarities on top of each other. So, for the guest and the audience and the slim amount of people that don't know who Jamie Gruber is, I would like to, start out is like, give us the 10-cent version of your intro, and then I'll dive into some questions to start peeling out some of those additional layers.
First, I must say this. You getting insight from me when we meet is laughable. I appreciate that, but I can sit and listen for hours to what you go into, whether it's real estate markets, personal development, branding, the book you wrote, all that stuff. So the feeling is very much mutual. 10-cent version of me. Let's see. I am a New Yorker via Boston, living in Michigan. The bulk of my career, my adult life, was spent as an insurance claims adjuster, manager, and then executive with a large insurance company. I found my path to wanting freedom. I didn't know exactly how or where, 5 years ago or so, after the move to Michigan. And from that point forward, I've invested in real estate. I've looked at other opportunities where I can grow. I built a couple of businesses, and I left my day job, making a few $100,000 a year, equity, the whole nine, in early 2021. So a little over a year and a half or so now. And, my family has opened up the lifestyle design that I intended, which is traveling multiple months a year, having location freedom, putting our kids through a non-traditional education source, and, just trying to figure out what it is to be an entrepreneur. I'm still learning that process, and I'm enjoying every second of it.
So you mentioned a life by design. Yeah. So how did that come about? Like, what was it that you started you on that path?
I don't know the exact thing that created lifestyle design. Let me take that back. What started me down the path of making a transformation in my life, and maybe it's kind of, the event happens to all of us in that late 30s, early 40s mark at some point. I don't know. But that move I made from Boston to Michigan with my company after having grinded for years to become an executive, it was everything I thought I deserved, wanted to be, and it was this destination that I felt was the thing that would just serve the rest of my life. Once I'm there, everything else becomes easy because of the equity and everything else that came with it. The moment I got it and I moved to Michigan, within a month, the first 30 days of, glad handing is all worn off. it was just like this hollowness in me. I didn't know why. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is what I wanted, but I don't feel complete. I don't feel like I got what I wanted. I feel like it's that moment of be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. So I got that, right? And I remember thinking, even in that moment, man, to be free financially, and even a little before that, I had started looking at real estate. I think I bought a couple duplexes like right before. That was my first foray into real estate. So I started to think in that way. But like financial freedom felt big and it felt broad. Like I couldn't get my hands around it. But why I wanted financial freedom and what I wanted for my life felt much more tangible and something that I would be drawn towards. So it's where the idea of lifestyle design or life by design came in. So for me, I stopped defining number of doors and units that would get me to, X number of dollars in passive income. And I started looking more at, well, what do I want my life to be? And what I want, I remember explaining this to a coworker at an airport. I'm like, dude, I want to be able to travel 3 months a year with my family. And I want to be able to work from anywhere in the world that I want to. And I remember immediately being poo-pooed. Dude, you got this job. We have a policy. You can't even log in internationally. You want to be anywhere in the world. You're not allowed. You'll be fired if you log into your computer because there's no security. One, two, you've got kids. Your kids are about to go into school. Like, how the hell are you going to navigate that with kids in school? Right. So I had it in my head. Again, I was around people that were probably not thinking anywhere near where I was thinking as far as what was possible. And I really started to prioritize lifestyle freedom and built whatever behind that. So yes, passive income, but yes, businesses, because I knew I would do something. I'm not going to sit on a beach somewhere. So what would I enjoy doing with my time? Working. Like, this is work technically for me. And I freaking love it, right? Getting on a podcast, talking to you, using this, marketing myself, all that. It's all work. But to be able to use this or to be able to do this with my time and enjoy it and, in some ways monetize it is way more enjoyable. So lifestyle freedom is more tangible and more exciting for me than financial freedom, I think is the best way to put it.
I think there's a lot of people that are on, a similar journey, call it the W-2, doing the right things, going to the right school, getting the right promotions, and they realize they're on just a bigger hamster wheel. And it sounds like, you got the executive role, you got the equity, you got it. Yeah, I did it. I did what I was supposed to do. Yep. And then it wasn't what it was kind of cracked up to be. So I at least I get a lot of people reaching out to me, high income earners. And let's be honest, maybe it's FOMO. Like, they kind of have like this, I want to be doing all of this, or I see other people doing these things and that's not my life. So maybe talk me through as far as your, W-2 exit, and maybe like, what was your day in your life and as far as your path? Because and the reason I ask that is because I think it's valuable for people that are maybe looking to do that into the future or creating kind of those mechanisms. You said the first 30 days or after the first 30 days of kissing the babies and shaking the hands, it felt a little empty and hollow, but was that instantaneous? What was that lifestyle by design? Did that take time? Was that a process? Like, so maybe talk through like what led you to these different steps. And then if there were milestones, and then to where in 2021, you were able to exit your W-2.
Love it. I love it. Real estate was the first thought I had. So yes, it was very quick and it felt like a cliff. 30 days, 45 days in or whatever. It felt like a cliff. It felt like, I went from, okay, I got this, probably feeling this sense of, it's almost like at your wedding, right? Like if you know it's not the right person to marry, you might be thinking it's cold feet or whatever initially, but then later on you're like, oh no, I knew the whole time. Same thing. I probably had this feeling over 30 or 45 days that just I thought was nerves, or I'm new here to this organization, But yeah, like 30, 45 days in, the veneer wore off. My boss and I got into instant conflict, and it fell off a cliff. So yeah, it was pretty instantaneous. Real estate felt tangible to me, which is why I had started looking at it even before making this move, right? I bought a couple of duplexes right before we moved. Like, we happened to close like a week before we moved from Boston to Michigan, back in upstate New York, like 3 hours from Boston. We buy these properties, and then I moved to Michigan. And real estate felt like the thing that I was going to be all about. Like, this is it. Real estate is my thing. And I had chosen my path. And I remember, and this is for a lot of people that are out there, I think, thinking about, I've got my job. I like this real estate thing, but there's some things I don't really love about it. But I've committed, because if I deviate or go in a different direction or whatever, everyone's going to judge me for being all over the place. And I can't stand that. That might not be exactly how you're thinking, but that's how we think, right? So I chose real estate because that's what you're supposed to do. I was 20 years in a company, and now this is my new thing. That's acceptable societally, right? For me to change one thing to the next thing. But within real estate, I realized, like, I mean, I kind of like the talk around real. I like the interaction around real estate. I like the contact around real estate. I don't love turning units. I don't love dealing with contractors. I don't love hiring and firing a sub. None of that was appealing to me, but I really like the interaction. So for me, I was looking to upgrade to multifamily. I went to a couple of real estate meetups locally. Nobody was in multifamily. So I thought, well, let me start a multifamily group. Again, within real estate, but unbeknownst to me, it became a pivot. So I start this multifamily networking group, like a RIA. And a bunch of people came for multifamily, a lot of interest. No other multifamily meetups in my area, and there was a lot of interest. This is like 2018. And from that, I realized I kind of like this out in front presentation thing. And we created a Facebook group, and I would start to do like Facebook Lives, and I was creating content, and I was putting stuff out there. And all of a sudden, it was kind of fun to have a brand. So branding became my thing, and I got sick of talking about real estate. So I pivot over to more mindset related stuff, which leads to a business called Emerge and Ascend, which we'll talk about a little bit later, right? A course and community and all of that stuff. So now I've gone from, if you follow it, oh, you're investing in real estate. That makes sense to me. $100 a door, 100 units purchase, 10,000 a month, like that whole bigger pockets formula that we all go through. To, okay, yeah, I'm a real estate investor, but really I identify more by this brand that I'm building around real estate. And oh, by the way, I don't want to be pigeonholed by real estate as a brand. I actually enjoy, larger concepts than just real estate. So I'm over here now. I'm more of like a mindset, almost like a coach in some ways. I was going down that path, but that pivot after pivot after pivot happened just by allowing myself to look at, okay, real estate. I made a step away from my job, right? I made a step. What do I love about it? Well, here's what I like. What don't I like? I don't like these things. Okay, cool. Well, what if I did only the stuff I like within real estate for the most part, which is, interacting, networking, brand building, all of that stuff in real estate, right? Helping people learn about it. Because I understand real estate fundamentally very, very well, right? So how can I help others with that? Cool. And then that became, well, you know what? The mindset piece is actually more appealing to me. So I could build a course in a community and sell that to people because I think it's valuable for them to come and be in my world around, how they get out of a job or how they elevate their lives. And then eventually, thanks to community, I met an operator that I partnered with. And what my role is as a general partner with that operator is marketing, investor relations, and capital raising. All the things I like about real estate. I'm not on the operations side of things. I'm not on the acquisition side of things. I get to enjoy the stuff I love in real estate while being true to what I'm great at. So to answer your question of like the day-to-day, job was all day, wife, kids at home, just like a lot of people. And then, at night, I was creating content, putting stuff out there, interacting with people on different social media accounts, messaging, doing Facebook Lives, putting meetups together, all of that, building this sort of brand that pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and pivoted to today, where I am is a course creator and mastermind leader. I have my own personal brand, and there's some things I do with that. And I have a podcast, and then I have my relationship with Quantum Capital, my general partnership with Quantum Capital, where I don't buy my own stuff anymore. Everything I do, I buy with them. I'm a general partner with them. So, and I invest as a limited partner as well. So I hope that's not too broad, but the point I think that people get stuck on when it comes to, I love this real estate thing, I'm going to leave my job, is they commit to real estate or whatever it is, real estate, or, I built an Etsy store or whatever. And like, that's the only thing you can do, versus understanding that there are multiple pivots to make as you go from, institutionally employed, conditionally employed. Like everything I do has to be because somebody else pays me, to now I'm an entrepreneur, or now I'm doing something outside of the confines of a W-2 job. You're going to move a lot. You're going to pivot a lot. You're going to do things differently, potentially. Or maybe you do. Maybe you find real estate and you're all in on it. That's fine. But it's okay to pivot. And for me, I had a lot of pivots along the way, and I'm sure I'll have more.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and what I've enjoyed seeing your journey, because I mean, has it been 4 years?
That you and I have known each other almost. Yeah.
Something like that, about 4 years. and seeing you from that, starting your investment journey to
Yeah.
kind of discovering some of these next levels of understanding and seeing it too. Hey, I'm leaving my W-2, which, I was like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
doing it. Um, I think you brought up some things in there that I'd like to kind of highlight, or at least, maybe dive a little bit deeper. You found things that you liked and you didn't like.
Yeah.
And then you were able to kind of, through that process of, let's call it having a side hustle. You had I'm working my day job, I'm making my income, but, in the afternoons, the evenings, the nights, your meetups, putting those things, it took you 3 years or so of doing that until you got to a place to where you could leave your W-2. So I think that's a big misconception, that people think like, great, I've decided, and now instantaneously, and then there's a process. Um, so how did you discover what you liked and you didn't like? Was that just through the side hustle elements of starting to invest, or like, how did you come to that mindset or those realizations of discovering the things that you liked and you didn't like?
Coaching helps. I had a coach at the time. That coach would point out, how I was reacting to certain things in my life. And it helps to kind of have somebody from the outside looking in say, I can feel this energy versus that energy, right? So that helps. But honestly, it's just a gut check thing. Procrastination is an indicator. So the things that I didn't want to do, like, oh crap, I gotta go, deal with this pain in the ass tenant today, or whatever, like that stuff. Like I could feel myself finding reasons not to, or to put it off to the very last minute. But if you were to say, "Hey, I'd love to get you on a podcast, and let's talk absolutely all day. Let's go right now. Like, can we do it now?" So I would just kind of feel what felt light and what felt heavy for me, and what felt light tended to skew toward leveraging communication, leveraging my a gift of mine in communication to help hopefully influence other folks toward being whatever version of themselves they want to be, toward living their best life. So I started to find energy toward that. And then honestly, there were indicators on the other side of it. Like I was not asked often to get on, and even this, like I'm not asked to get on and talk about, like, Jamie, you own X number of units, you have 40 units, actually we sold a couple, whatever, but you have this, you're with Quantum Capital. I'm never asked to come on and talk about, hey, let me get a sense of like how you operate your real estate, what systems you've built and all. Nobody asked me that, nor should they, right? They ask me questions and bring me on because they're interested in hearing the story around, the changes I've made in my life, how I've leveraged whatever gifts I had to quit my job and all of that stuff. So I think there's external indicators, even at meetup groups. Like I would go up with a topic, like ask me anything related to real estate or anything for that matter. And I was relieved in some ways that 90% of the questions would be non-real estate related, non-nitty gritty related. They would be all about, how did you come up with this group? How did you develop the mindset? How do you balance a side hustle? How do you do this without your boss finding out, right? Like those are the questions that I was getting versus, can you tell me, your average cost per unit when you do a unit turn, or what's your carpet cost? Or how do you find a painter and all that stuff, So for me, I think there was one internal validation from a light versus heavy feeling. And then externally, I was getting all the clues, being asked to speak at conferences about brand building. No one was putting me on a panel about CapEx. They were putting me on brand building panels, right? So that was sort of the two external and internal indicators to me that this is the path I'm on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that analogy. What is light, what versus heavy. I've heard that described a couple different ways, but I really think that is very telling. So your partnership with Quantum Capital, as far as doing those things that you love, the marketing, the capital raising, kind of driving that vision. How did that come about?
Yeah, thanks to the power of community. The smartest thing I did before leaving my job was get myself around entrepreneurs. And I didn't do that like, okay, it wasn't that logical. Like, I'm going to get around entrepreneurs because they can teach me how to quit my job. That's not what it was. It was just, I'm getting into this real estate thing. I've got this side hustle thing. I like this idea of entrepreneurship. I should probably just get around some of these folks. So I joined Gobundance. That's where I met you. And through the course of that, for the first 2 years of being in it, I built, recognition within that group. People know who I am, and they know what my skills are and what they're not, for that matter. So when I announced, to your point, that I was going to quit my job, it was actually at the Tahoe event. in March of 2021, I think it was. I was like, hey, I'm going back and I'm quitting. Not that I made the decision just then, but I'm going back and I'm quitting. And that's when stuff started to come at me like, hey, you're quitting. Well, I know you, I know what you're great at. I might have an opportunity, so on and so forth. One of those guys was Mark Henteman, who you know. Mark is an investor, large portfolio with Quantum Capital, 150 plus million. Also really cool that he's a writer for Family Guy. That's a neat side story. But he was like, look, man, it's me and it's Nick. And, we are really good at what we're really good at, which is analysis and operations. That's their thing. But we don't have a marketing presence. And I haven't met a guy that connects people like you do and that gets in touch with people like you do. Like, you've got that about you. I would love for you to be a general partner. So I think the investment in me and investing in getting around the kinds of people that I wanted to become, entrepreneurs specifically, made sense. And now today it's just like, well, duh. If I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, right, I would go get around Navy SEALs to learn, like, what do these guys and gals think like? How do they, what kind of physical grit do they have and determination? Like, I'd want to be around that to say yes or no, I belong or don't belong, or I can become that. It's the same thing. I got around you and other entrepreneurs like you, and it was intimidating as hell. First time I met you, you were way over my head. You still are, but back then you were way, way over my head with just the knowledge and your take on entrepreneurship and everything else. But I grew into it. I grew into the mindset and what it takes to be that. And so, yeah, that community was huge. And then meeting a guy in that community that saw enough value in me to say, hey, I'd like to take a chance on you, bring you in as a partner and make you part of my team. I was all about it because, again, what he's asking me to be is nothing other than what I know I'm great at, not the stuff I'm not great at. He's never, ever asking me, hey, can you do a quick underwriting on this property? Like, I can, but that's not my thing. So that's how.
Well, I think to that point is, I think so many people think they have to go be the operator or be the investor, especially coming from the W-2 mindset of doing everything, do,
Yeah.
to then be like, well, I just got to go do, buy the real estate. I need to buy that multifamily building, that, net lease building. I need to go buy it. I need to go do those things. But the reality is that, you had limited amount of time. Like the questions that people were asking, how can you do this without your boss finding out? How could you do these things? Well, I think those are a lot of fears that people have, is how do I do this thing that I don't know how to do? And really you're starting over. To your point is like, you were able to take advantage, or not necessarily take advantage, but fit into the piece of someone that was already doing this. Like, I have these skill sets. You're already doing that. Wow. Why don't I help you with that? And I think it becomes fortuitous for everyone involved.
I always say this to people who are thinking about, leaving the job, because even one small aside, like having a virtual assistant manage my inbox, like that's not possible in a W-2, right? Like a W-2 is like, no, you do all these things. And I mean, I think back to my job, and some people could probably relate to this. All I did was email. Yeah, shoot me an email on that. Yep, I replied to that email. Can you get me an email on that? Yeah, how about we just get on a group email? Everything was freaking email. So just having somebody go through my inbox and then WhatsApp me and say, hey, these are the three you got to reply on. Oh, cool. All the other 100 I don't have to deal with. Awesome. I'll reply to those three. No problem. Right. But that aside, I always say to people that are employed, or even if you're not and you're sort of navigating this world, this is my learning at this point of my journey. I think there are three superpowers in real estate and any business, but let's stick with real estate because that's what your audience is mostly, I would assume. There are three superpowers in real estate, I believe, that you have, one of the three, whether you have any real estate experience or not, that add value to a visionary, add value to an operator. There's three. So the first one is you're an analyzer. Now, look, if you're in the disc profile world, I love disc. This is like a C, somebody who's, or a blue, somebody who really like digs in, like all day you can be in the data, not only doing underwriting, but even like optimizing the spreadsheet within which you do that underwriting with formulas and autofills. Like you just geek out on that stuff. And then when you get home, you spend 4 hours on Edmunds.com researching the next car you're going to buy. Like stem to stern, that's what you love. Never lose energy doing it. You do it all the time. That's an analyzer. And that person has, to me, enormous skill and enormous value to an operator in the real estate world. So analyzer is one. If you're not an analyzer, perhaps you're an integrator. An integrator is somebody who, let's on the disc profile, like a red or a D typically, right? Somebody who's really driven. I look at this person as like that general on the field that can see all the next 6 or 7 moves that his soldiers need to make. Like the visionary says, man, I would love to have X, right? And then this person goes, well, okay, in order to have X, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do that. That integrator is that field general that can bring the vision to life, that can line up the dice on the board, if you will, or the chess on the board, chess pieces on the board. So that integrated, man, I mean, you tell me, man, in Gobundance, you talk to 10 Gobundance guys, 8 of them are looking for an integrator, right? Integrators are a highly, highly valuable skill. And whether you have experience integrating in a corporate environment, in real estate or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter as much as, do you have that superpower? If you do, tremendously value. You can stay in that lane and make a lot of money and add a lot of value to somebody in the marketplace. And the third, and this is me, is a connector. So the connector, again, disc would be like a yellow or a green, an I or an S, probably very people-centric. But this is somebody like me, like, look, I could be on podcasts all day, create content, get off of this, jump on phone calls till 9 o'clock tonight and be completely energized. No problem. Like I could be talking to people all damn day, right? Again, now, can I analyze a deal? Yes, but here's the indication for me. Like some people are like, well, I'm an analyzer, I'm an integrator. It's like, yeah, okay. One of these gives you energy and others you can do, but it might take energy. So for the analyzer, they can be a connector. They can work a room and hang out with people and glad hand and laugh and shake hands, and they can look really great as a connector outwardly, but they got to go back to their hotel room alone in the dark, take a break because their energy is sapped, right? Whereas me, I'm going back to my hotel room and calling all my friends about how cool that connection event was, right? Like, so those 3 superpowers, connector, analyzer, and integrator, to me, if you have any of those and you're sitting in a job and wondering what else could I do, what value do I really bring, you have one of those three superpowers, and either you can supplement or, like if somebody that you're going to go work with, an operator, like you say, you, Jake, is an analyzer and you're a connector, great. You offset Jake's skill set. Or Jake is elevated to the analyzer in his business to the visionary of his business, and he needs a new analyzer to replace him. Either or works.
So the analyzer, integrator, connector,
yeah.
3 superpowers and to be honest, I don't think that's exclusive to real estate. I think that is all businesses need someone that can do analysis, at a very high level, gives them energy. Integrator, strategic kind of facilitating, and then connector. And then obviously, you mentioned it, having a visionary or someone kind of leading that tribe. I think those are the 4 kind of major roles in any business that, lead to its success, getting those all done. So my question is, how did you discover that about yourself?
Being a connector?
Yeah.
Again, I think it goes back to the external clues. Like I said, when Mark came to me with Quantum, it wasn't a question of like, oh, you're in real estate, come join my real estate team. It was like, come be my face. Come be my outward facing guy. Come be the guy that interacts with other people, right? So I really think that well, let me take that a step back. That was probably the validation of it. But for me to understand that, I think things like disc profiles or these color, what are they called, enneagrams and all those, I think those are great. Some people really poo-poo them, like, well, you get, you're saying this is all you can be, and I don't agree with that. I think if you look at a disc profile as I described it, like I am a high what's it called, an I, so an influence guy, right? Doesn't mean I can't do analysis. Some people look at it that way, like, oh, I'm a high I can't be a C. It's like, no. You can do C work. You can do analysis work. It just saps your energy, right? It's just, where does your energy go up versus go down? So that's where I think personality tests are very valuable. But for me, that was step 1. 2 was I understood that I was good at connecting people, but I never understood that it was unique, right? So that was never something I knew that was unique. Like some people that dive in and they look at numbers and they're analyzing a deal or analyzing anything for that matter. If I look at that, like, how the hell did you come up with that? They're like, what do you mean? This is so simple. Like, how special? It's not that special. I just did it because we don't feel special about our own gifts. I think, honestly, I go back to getting around entrepreneurs, because I think entrepreneurs just understand this stuff inherently. And this is something, believe it or not, these 3 things started in some way with you talking to me in Aspen, Colorado, 2 years ago about similar concepts and principles about the strengths that we have versus the strengths we don't have. And I think you were saying at that point something about a connector or whatever the words you used. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a thing? Like that's a skill? So again, being around the right people, the people that are like-minded, and in my particular case, I want to be around entrepreneurs, real estate or otherwise, made me understand like, oh wait, this might be a unique gift versus just being, well, everybody can do this. So you need something, Jake. I know this guy. How hard is it for me to put you two together on a text connection, right? Like whoop-de-doo. But I didn't realize behind that, yeah, and you were one of the ones that explained this to me, like, yeah, but you have to remember the stories. And then you have to hear this story, and you have to instantly recall this list of people whose story might integrate with your story, and then say, hey, I want to connect you. I want to bring you together. Like there's all of these things that make it very special to be a connector, just like an analyzer, just like an integrator. And actually one more step with that, when I worked for my company and I took over this organization and I hated doing it in Michigan, one thing I did was remove a manager that reported to me and brought in a guy from New Jersey who I understood at that point the value of like getting out of a great operator's way. Like this dude just took it and blew it up. Like I did nothing. He did everything, not only for his organization, but all of his peers all got lifted by this amazing operator, which for me at that moment made me realize I'm not that guy. I'm not an integrator. That's a freaking integrator. So you start to see in others what their skill is, and then acknowledge in yourself, like, well, if that's what he is, then the value I bring is the ability to put people together, put teams together, connect people, understand the dynamics of relationships. That's my special gift. And it took me getting around the right people to realize that.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I don't know if I referenced this before, but Keith Ferrazzi's book called Never Eat Alone.
You have talked about that. I didn't know the name of the author, but you've talked about the book before.
Yeah, as far as like, and you're that to me. Like I see it, and obviously to me it seems very obvious, and maybe you didn't see that it was unique. But you have a superpower, and I believe everyone has their own unique superpower. Everyone is better at something, and especially around what you just said, something that gives you energy. Things that you would go do for free, like on the nights and weekends. You're like, man, this fires me up. Like I'm excited about that. Like, let's go do that. Obviously, that needs to fit within side of a larger context of the other skill sets and assembling a team and doing these things as a tribe or as a journey together. So I wanted to dive in and specifically around how you've taken this, being around entrepreneurs, and then talk to me about Emerge and Ascend. You're the creator of Emerge and Ascend. Maybe first give us high levels of them and then what the differences are and explain it, because I think it is an unbelievable program that you've created.
I appreciate that. Yeah. What I learned about being around entrepreneurs in particular was the true value of being a giver. When I joined Gobundance, it was intimidating, right? People are making a lot more money than me. Their net worths are multiples more than me, hundreds of millions more than me in some cases, right? Like or whatever, 100+ million more than me. So being around folks like that initially was like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I possibly going to get out of this experience? I can't relate. I have a job. I'm not $100 million guy or whatever. You always see the biggest one, right? You see the biggest guy in the room. You're like, oh, there's no way I should even be here. But I learned later through being around some of the guys that I spend a lot of time with, like my accountability group in particular, the value of just listening and then adding value to them. So if you add value in life in general, I believe it comes back in some way, shape, or form. Not that you're doing it with the intent of, I give Jake a connection and then Jake's going to do something for me. Where is it, Jake? Not like that. But over time, the universe, whatever, returns value to you. When you're around entrepreneurs who are committed to being and I think entrepreneurship at its core is that it's how do I solve problems for people? That's what entrepreneurship is, right? Then you learn the value of being a giver. Like, wow, let me just add whatever I can to everybody's life here, and then it'll come back. So at one point, getting into this new mindset, 6, 8, 9 months into my time in Gobundance, I had this epiphany of let me stop worrying about what I'm going to get or whether or not I fit, and let me just add whatever I can. Listen to somebody if they have a problem. Offer a connection. Here's an article I read, whatever. And one of the things I did was I went to Gobundance and I said, hey guys, what do you need? Like I've been getting so much out of this organization. I've been getting so much out of the connections here. What can I do to help? And they said, well, you know what? We've been trying to do something for future millionaires. Gobundance requires $1 million plus net worth, but a lot of people are interested in what we do and we want to help them. We want to build something to help them get to this place where they can join Gobundance, be millionaires. They are either entrepreneurs or side hustle entrepreneurs that just haven't hit the number on the balance sheet yet and are looking to be part of this whole thing. So I said, yeah, again, no knowledge ever of building a online course or being a mastermind leader. But I was like, yeah, hell yeah, that sounds fun. Because again, it brings in my skills, connection and interpersonal relationships and everything. So Emerge was built as a 12-week online course. And actually, interestingly, and I look back like, this is actually pretty badass. Without having to figure out exactly what it was going to be, I went out and I sold 30 courses without having a course for like $497, something like that, right? It was like $500. Hey, everybody, we're going to do something cool. It's going to be great. I'm taking 30 of you in a beta test. You're going to help me develop this thing. And we essentially funded the operation by pre-selling this course before it was made. I didn't record a video. I had no layout for it. I had nothing. So we sell this thing, or I sell this thing to 30 people. And then I go, okay, well, what would be valuable here? And I started to go back through and figure out all the steps that I see from guys like David Osborne, yourself, others. And it's like, man, you know what? I could build 12 weeks of content here that's really valuable. And I want to do a few things with it. First, with Emerge is we create transformation. So at its core, it's a goal-setting course and mastermind. So at the beginning of it, you're going to establish a goal that you want to achieve by the end of the 12 weeks. And we give you the tools, the curriculum, the know-how, and the community in order to do that. So we want to create that transformation. Like, I've been stuck on this, set that goal. We're going to get you there by 12 weeks or get you damn close. The second thing was I see the value in proximity, totally. So I wanted to not only provide them proximity to one another as future millionaires, current side hustle or full-time entrepreneurs or whatever, but also proximity to Gobundance, to members of Gobundance. So we bring in every Tuesday a Gobundance member, we do a Q&A, go through their one sheet, all of that good stuff. But then thirdly, it was like, well, all right, but I also want to have a place where we can work even more with people beyond 12 weeks. Like 12 weeks is great, but then what, right? If you're not at millionaire status and join Gobundance, that's where we created Ascend, which is essentially the Gobundance mastermind without the $1 million requirement. And in order to join Ascend, you have to go through the 12 modules of Emerge. If you don't complete them, you don't get the invite. So that's the barrier to entry. So we used Emerge for those three things: transformation, proximity, and a barrier to entry. And Ascend is group coaching, even deeper proximity. We do trainings around business acquisition, short-term rental. We have mindset coaches that come in. It's an intensive, full-on community mastermind, just like Gobundance, where you get access to others, accountability pods. We have micro tribes around different topics like lifestyle design and gig economy and all this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what Emerge and Ascend is built to do. And we've been fortunate in the last year and 2 or 3 months to graduate 30 people from that program into Gobundance, whether the women's or the men's side. So it's been a very fulfilling venture. And honestly, the thing that prompted me to say, I need to do this full time, that emptiness, it's filled up when I see the results people are getting in this thing. This is where I need to be spending my time, my daytime, my work time, if you will.
So is that what has replaced your W-2 timeline as far as the Emerge and Ascend, or is it the marketing, the things with Quantum Capital?
Both and then some. So, really both, with Quantum, I get the benefit of, acquisition fees and those sorts of things as we acquire property. And then of course I'm investing as a limited partner, and I have a general partnership share. Once we turn these, I get my split of the 30% and so on. So that's been good. I've gotten significant income from acquisition fees that I have with Quantum. And then, Emerge and Ascend has provided me an income stream from just, bringing people in and helping them change their lives, it was just crazy. It's like, it's too easy in that regard. Like, how do I make money doing something that's just so much freaking fun, right? Like, that's the crazy part about it. And like I said, I have passive income. Do I have the kind of passive income that lets me say, I don't want to work another day, I don't have to? Not yet. But I'm doing something actively, and I'm sure I always will. I just don't see me as that guy that sits on a beach. I don't think any high achiever is for a long time. I do something actively that doesn't feel like work. That's pure passion. And I'm able to build a team and systems in the way that I want to. In fact, my team builds the systems because I'm not good at that. So yeah, Emerge and Ascend was easily Quantum became sort of the wealth builder for me because I stopped buying my own stuff and I'm doing everything with Quantum. And I have some income from it. And Emerge and Ascend are my purpose-driven reason to leave my W-2.
I love that because there's something that I'm on, same journey as well, as far as learning and leaning more into my purpose. And more of the things that I've discovered is, and you hit it exactly nail on the head, that it fills you up.
Mm.
And so oftentimes, um, when you are climbing the corporate ladder, you're climbing your life's um, mission. It is all, the through line is wealth, oftentimes money. And then people think once you get to the certain level, you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
And they associate that because it's oftentimes like, what you need to eat, what you need to pay your bills, what your things is all the money as the vehicle, the fuel. But the reality is it's not money that makes you happy. It is discovering your purpose. And then that purpose in service of others is what makes you and fulfills you. And so what I heard from you was the emerge and ascend is your purpose, and that you're doing that in service of others. And what happens is, in time, it's not instantaneously, but it's not that they're going to pay you back. Like, they're not, and these people that you're helping to change their lives, or the 30 people that are graduating to Gobundance, but you have now created a ripple effect that is magnitudes greater than what you could do or earn in income. Because now look at this, you've created $30 million worth of net worth for those people that have graduated.
Yeah. Yeah.
You haven't created $30 million, yourself, or maybe you have in that same
No.
time period.
Right.
But I go, which one's more fulfilling? If you had a $30 million net worth, or you just created 30 million millionaires
Yep.
that changed their life, their families, their wherewithal. I mean, and being around you, I've seen it. I've seen the way that it fires you up. So obviously I would say do more of what is your purpose in the service of others.
Yeah, I've had to come to grips with my purpose, and I mean that because it's you're conditioned not to speak that highly of yourself or whatever. But I say my purpose is that to inspire and motivate others to live their best life. To your point, I do that through the medium of, I think, communication. I have a mix of energy and communication skill, and some level of desire and passion around these topics enough where it resonates enough where people take me on and say, hey, yeah, I'd love to be in your world and be in a space where you can help me achieve what I'm trying to achieve. So with that, giving it to others, giving that gift to others for me is inspiring and motivating them to live their best life. So if you go follow me or whatever, you're going to see a lot of stuff about quitting your job and overcoming limitations and all of that stuff, because I hear that from a lot of people. That's what their desire is. Like, how did you do that? How do you get there? And I love what you said, though. It is in service of others. And that's what made it. I didn't have that at my job. I didn't feel like I was in service. Maybe I was, but I just didn't feel connected to the mission or whatever service I was providing. Whereas here I do, for sure.
So obviously people should check out Emerge and Ascend if they're not of the capability to join Gobundance. I think it is an amazing program that'll be in the show notes. I'd like to dive in a little bit into advice that you would give to someone that's in a high income, kind of W2 position that is looking to lean more into their purpose. What is that advice that you give to them, obviously from your experiences?
I think you have to take one step toward whatever you think is interesting to you and build community around it. It's so hard. It's such a big question. If I'm a 42-year-old dude sitting out there, or 41-year-old woman sitting out there, and it's like, or whatever, 35, and I'm trying to figure out, like, this is what they all said when I left to me. I don't know what I would do if I'm not doing this, right? My challenge back to them is, one, there's something you love, whatever it is, botany, the Los Angeles Rams, hair, whatever it is, right? There's a topic that you love talking about. But the question they ask them, if I ask somebody, well, what's something you love? They don't ask themselves, what do I love? They ask themselves, how do I make money with that? And I would say, stop asking that question. And really, what do you love, right? So if I love hairstyling, right? I really get geeked out on hairstyling, or I love, beards are my thing, whatever it might be. It sounds silly, but now create a community around that. I think community is the currency of the future. I think we're only at the beginning of the things like Gobundance, Emerge, and we're in such a connected world. You can be anywhere at any time. We have people in Emerge that are in Dubai and France and all over the world. So community around the topic that you're most passionate about without the worry of monetization, because it takes time. You said it, 3 years before I left my job. I mean, that's not a long time, but it feels like a long time when you hate what you do, right? But if you were to say, okay, I love doing this topic, and I go out there and I go to meetup.com and I create a community that's going to meet up on Zoom or whatever and talk about this specific topic, bring in guest speakers, whatever it might be, just geek out about it. Then you form a Facebook group and you're interacting with people in that Facebook group. At a certain point, you develop this sort of jab, hook mentality of like Gary Vee, right? Where you build up enough momentum and desire for people to want to be with you that maybe it's a product that you put out. Maybe it's a training course of knowledge that you have that's valuable to them that you can put out there. Maybe it's individual coaching, whatever. Maybe it's a business you build around this. Maybe you start a barbershop. I don't know. But the point is, in this beard trimming thing, the point is, I think the advice I would give is first, what do you love? Not what do you love that'll make money, just what do you love? Create community around it. And then the second piece of advice is understand and be okay with the pivot. Because while you think I've figured it out, oh my God, it checks every box. I love beards. I love, Salvatore Dali paintings, whatever it is. I love them so much. I could talk about them all day. Then you start to build something that creates a business out of it. And then you realize like, there's something about this I don't love as much as I thought I might, but I do like this part of it. And I want to do more of that. So, but it's kind of a pivot. It's going to be a little weird. People are going to think like, weren't you just doing this? Like, don't worry about that. Just move on to what feels naturally like the next best thing for you, because that pivot is the fear of the pivot is the fear of judgment from others. That's it. You're not afraid of failing. You really aren't, unless somebody saw you fail. So I think the second thing is after you've established that you're doing this thing on the side, now don't be afraid to pivot when that opportunity comes up to do so. If you need to, maybe you don't, maybe you figure it out in the first shot, but if you don't, it's okay. Don't be afraid of that. Those are the two pieces of advice I would give people.
The taking action, and then part of it discovering the permission that just because you took a step in that direction, it's okay to go the other way or lean into something else. So I think that's valuable insight. I had a question about, one of the things that you had done or purchased that had given you more time or free time or something around that. So that's the question I have to you, is something that you've invested into that has given you more freedom. Obviously we're talking about passive wealth principles. So what is it, something that you've invested into that has given you more freedom?
Simplest version of this, and then you can expand. I'll even give you a few examples if you want, but is $40 a week. A lady comes in and folds and puts our laundry away. Like, as dumb as that sounds, as simple as that sounds, it's the smallest investment of money for a task that is such a pain in the ass. And when you extrapolate that, when you look at, I spend $15 a week for a virtual assistant to manage my inbox. We spend $40 a week for somebody to handle our lawn care, $80 a week for someone to handle the pool. Like, when you add up, and it's really like a few $100 a month to do nothing other than really what you should be doing, dollar productive activity. When you can focus on dollar productive activities, anything that you can hire out is amazing. So for me, my wife and I sit down every year and we plan our next year. We talk about we do like a do not do list. Like, I don't want to do this shit anymore, this stuff anymore, right? So one of the things one year was the laundry. Like, how do we not do the laundry anymore? We found a lady who was willing to do it for $40 a week. And it was like, what else? What else can we take off our plates now? So now we're trying to hire everything out, everything that doesn't equal dollar productive or quality time with our family, like, time with my boys or whatever. We try to hire that out. And in this world, man, virtual assistants are amazing and so inexpensive. Anyone can hire a team. You hear that team, it's such a big term, but you could have 7 virtual assistants and be paying $600 a month for all of them combined to do, certain types of tasks that can absolutely open up your life to doing the things that are purposeful for you.
I think that's great insight. So let's give some tactics. Like, what are some things that, how did you find your first VA? How did you find that lady to fold your laundry? Because I think sometimes people will like having some of those action items. So if you're looking at hiring a VA or hiring out something that you don't want to do, how do you go find those people?
Virtual assistant for me, I went personally to a website called virtualstaff.ph, ph being Philippines. And here's what I did. I put up a job posting. They give you advice on how to do it on the website, like, hey, make it a compelling title, ask a question, whatever. So I put up a job posting, and then I got freaking inundated. I had like 150 emails come in from people that are on that site. I think it costs like $120 to register for the site, and then you can post whatever jobs you want after that. But I had like 150 emails come in, and it was just like last three. So I looked at the last three, I interviewed them, and I hired one of them, right? So the next time, and I learned this from the virtual staff, microtribe and Gobundance, the next time in the middle of the job description, and it's only like 2 paragraphs, but in the middle, I put something like, hey, reply with, inbox management in the title, in the subject, if you want to apply for this job. So I got 150 emails again, but like 7 of them had the proper what I asked for in the actual subject, which means 7 people actually read what the job is and didn't just like auto reply to it. So now I had a limited candidate pool, and I hired a person from that. And they both worked out great for me. They're both still working with me right now. So virtualstaff.ph was great. And then that pro tip is bury it a little bit. Don't be a jerk. Don't put like 20 paragraphs and make them, like, oh, you missed the one thing. But you can limit the amount of noise by just simply in the middle of it, giving them some instruction. Like, could be the subject, could be, I need you to answer these 3 questions in the reply. And most won't, because they're just replying to the thing. So I was finding like the laundry lady. I'd have to ask my wife. I don't know where she exactly found her, but we had a cleaning lady. I think we talked to her, and she knew this lady. And it started with like, what can you do? And she mentioned the laundry, like, oh, perfect. So I don't exactly know how we got her, to be honest with you, but I know we have looked at like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace is great, sites like that to try to find people to come in and do, pool work or lawn work or whatever the case may be. Oh, and neighbor referrals are great too.
Yeah, I like that criteria. Things that we don't, or we hate, we don't want to do. So I
Not
hired, it's called Doo-Doo Squad.
squad.
They come and pick up poop in the yard for the dogs. And they do it the morning of, before the lawn guy comes in, so he's not mowing over crap. But I was like, to me, it was like probably one of the biggest things that between my wife and I, is because she's not really a dog person. I have a dog, and I've had a dog for a long time. And so she's like, well, it's like, the backyard's got poop, and what's the thing? So I was just like, exactly that. And I don't know, maybe I saw it, maybe I actually Googled it, but it was just like, I don't actually know how much it is. Maybe it's $100 a month, $25 a week or something like that. But I was like, it is immensely valuable because I don't have to pick up dog crap. I don't have to do it on the weekend. Is it raining that day? I get to go spend time with my kids? We go out to Ninja. We do other things. So I was like, I love that advice of the thing that I hate doing.
Especially when you have a job and you're trying to build a side hustle or whatever, like that's when you do it. Because there's so many, I had my job, my family, my kids, the weekends, side hustle, all these things I'm doing. Like I don't have time to fold the laundry. Not that, I mean, my wife did a lot of it, but a quick example, like we have a well, so we've got a water softener system. The filters and the salt need to be replaced every 8 to 10 weeks, right? So what is it, like 5 times a year, right? So they can bring it, they can deliver it, and I can go put it in the basement and rip off the filters and twist it and do all that crap. It's not hard. It doesn't take me a lot of time. It really doesn't. But for like $60, they'll do it. So it's like $60. But for $300 a year, $300 a year, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. Like, we have clean water coming through our house, right? Like something as simple as that. You can hire handymen. We've done this to come through and just like check all your light bulbs, go through and change your alarms, batteries. Like they just come through once a month and just do it for like $50, like you can do so many things to limit the little menial tasks that you have, and other people are willing to do it for pay. So I love the Doo-Doo Squad. I'll have to look into that. We haven't done that one yet.
Well, obviously things that you can do to free up your time to lean into more of the purpose or create a life of leaving your W-2. Couple things as we're wrapping up. I ask this of a lot of people because I believe that books, sometimes it's YouTube's or content or something like that, a podcast, are some of the biggest ways in which you can leverage other people's knowledge. So my question to you is, has there been any books that have either made a super big impact on your life, or maybe it's a book that you've gifted to other people because you were just like, hey, you need to read this book. Or maybe it's like a podcast that you've referred to several people, and you can answer all of those or just one individually, because how, again, creating action items that I think people can maybe take that has been beneficial to you.
All-time greatest book that I've gifted. It's my all-time go-to is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Fantastic book. Goes into the devil's true evils, right? It's not hellfire and brimstone. It's literally making people not live into their purpose, right? That's the devil's like drifting through life. So amazing book, better than Think and Grow Rich. I'd recommend it to everybody that's watching this. A recent book that I've read that blew my mind, and it was long as hell. It was one of these like 18-hour Audible books that I thought I'll start, but I'll never finish this thing. But I did, and I want to hear it again. Is Will Smith's autobiography? Unbelievable book. It was written before the slap, but you'll understand the slap after the first 2 or 3 chapters. But he has so much knowledge and wisdom, and there's so many nuggets in there, and just some concepts that I'm big on, like quieting your brain. And unbelievable book. Podcast, I don't have like a one that I go to anymore right now. I'm so focused on my own that I feel like I'm all into that. If I listen to any right now, a go-to for me is still like Tim Ferriss. I like Rogan in spurts only because his podcast is like 9 hours long. But Ferriss, I just like the flow of his podcast. I try to duplicate that with mine.
I really appreciate that. I have not heard of Will. I've seen the cover a few times, and I do love Outwitting the Devil. I do think it is better than Think and Grow Rich.
So Will, real quick, there's a guy, Alvin, down in LA. He's a Gobundance guy that I was texting with, happened to be while I was reading. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, man, I'm reading this book, Will. It's unbelievable. He's like, oh, it's in my Audible. Yeah, I'll have to try it tomorrow. He got through like he texted me like the next day, 24 hours later, he's through like 10 chapters, which if you read the book, that's like hours he spent. He's like, I can't stop. It's that damn good. So highly recommend. You should read it.
Well, I'll actually have to add that to my list. I was like, not that I don't have enough books.
I know.
But I was like, it is awesome, especially when it comes from someone like you that has been so insightful. So truly appreciate that. Guys, where can they find you, Jamie? And what can they do? What is there anything that they can, as far as the listeners, do for you? And this is the time where you can ask, or where they can potentially go to find you.
Yeah, look, you can go to my website, jamiegruber.com, and everything's there. But if you wanted to follow me on Instagram, I think that's the best route right now. I do a lot of content there. I'm active in the DMs there, so feel free to DM me. It's at the Jamie Gruber. It's everywhere at the Jamie Gruber, but Instagram in particular is sort of the hub where I spend a lot of time. I just think it's a great interactive platform. So find me there.
Awesome. Guys, again, this is another amazing episode. I've been excited for this, for connecting with Jamie for a long time. And obviously you heard it. You heard some of the knowledge that he's been able to drop, especially for those of you that are looking to get out of the W-2, the high income earning, and create a life of design. And so again, really, really appreciate you guys listening. Check out Jamie. Check out the Emerge and Ascend program if that is something that is interest to you. And then we're going to check out, or at least I'm going to check out, the book Will from his recommendation.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.